you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the Iron Lady sings it. That makes it official. Welcome to the big show. For 16 years and over 2,300 episodes, we're with the Chris Voss Show. The billionaires, the CEOs, the White House presidential advisors, the Pulitzer Prize. I got to catch your breath before I rank off that list. The Pulitzer Prize winners, the journalists, the great anchors of television. We've had some of the most amazing people on the show, and it just keeps coming at you daily. 2 to 3 shows a weekday we're producing, and if you're not listening to all of them, then I hope you lose sleep at night. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that, folks. But before the show, your family, friends, and relatives, go to goodreads.com. That was kind of rude. I said that, but you'll get over it. Yeah, you guys are used to it by now. Anyway, facebook.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. You know all the crazy places we're at. The opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. It's anyway an amazing young man, and we've been kicking around the green room about it's the Beard Show. So if you're watching this on YouTube or want to watch on YouTube, you can see the 2 epic beards on the show. We have an amazing guest who has one. Gregory Shepard joins us on the show, and his newest book was out September 24th, 2024, called The Startup Lifecycle, the definitive guide to building a startup from idea to exit. And boy, does he have a history behind him and quite the bio. You may want to hire him for just about anything. Gregory Shepard has built and sold 12 businesses in biotech, transit tech, ad tech, and martech. He's also a Forbes book author and contributor and has been featured or quoted in publications like Fortune, Entrepreneur, New York Observer, The Deal, and Thrive Global. I need to hire his PR agent. He's a recipient of 4 private equity awards for transactions between $250 million to $1 billion. He has appeared on TV, radio, popular podcasts, and now has reached the pinnacle of his career on the Chris Voss Show. He has been a TEDx and keynote speaker at multiple universities and conferences worldwide. He's a Fulbright Scholar Award recipient, and he's the founder at Voss Capital Partners. He co-leads a global investment syndicate that focuses on Series C technology businesses that prefer operational expertise and guidance. Welcome to the show. How are you, Gregory?
I'm good. Thank you. Sorry about that long bio.
No problem, man. You've done a lot of stuff. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interweb, sir?
GregoryShepard.com is my personal website, and then StartupScience.io is my work website.
Where the hell do you get all the free time for all this stuff? I'm looking at your website. You're doing, like every year, you do something amazing and challenging, firewalking and cliff diving and I don't know. I mean, why haven't you solved cancer already at this point? Seriously. You got a lot of you're making the most of your time, buddy. You really are, from what I can see about your bio.
Yeah, I mean, I for my birthday every year since I was 18, I choose one thing I think is impossible, and then I spend the whole year training for that one thing. So that's one of the things I do, and then I divide up my time into personal, family, work, and my quests.
Yeah. Are you married?
Yeah, I'm married, 3 kids, 2 grandchildren.
Shouldn't that be the best challenging thing you've ever done? Anyway.
My wife is amazing, man.
That's probably key.
Yeah. So cool.
That is awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I'm jelly. Does she have a sister who's single? Anyway, let's get into your book. Let's get into it. The Startup Lifecycle. Give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside it?
So what happened is that after I sold, all these companies, I went into politics, trying to move money down to startups from Congress. And some of the problems associated with that had to do with the number of founders that failed. So I did a research project to find out why, when, and how founders were failing. And then I had all this data. So then I wrote a book. And actually, the first book went into all the failure reasons, but it was like depressing, and I thought nobody's going to want to read this. So I rewrote the whole thing and added in how to avoid the problems and what to expect instead of just talk about it. So that's the origination of the book.
Well, it sounds more uplifting now. And one of the aspects of the book I see here is only 10% of startups make it beyond 5 years. Wow, that's crazy. Is some of that being bought out, or is that a high percent of failure rate?
It's failure. So like 47.1% fail in the first 18 months.
Wow.
And then over the following 5 years, the remainder up to 90% fail for things they did in the first 18 months.
Yeah. That's only my first 10 marriages. Callback joke never gets old on the show. And probably all my girlfriends too, with the failure rate there. So you help them. You've identified, looks like 7 different phases of a startup life cycle to help empower entrepreneurs and avert common mishaps through the phases. And yeah, that's just crazy. So many, only 10% of startups. I remember starting my business pre-internet with brick and mortar, and back then you had a 99% fail rate within the first 2 years. Like it was just that gun at your head that you just knew you had to somehow hope to win.
Yeah, it's like brutal. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. The standard reasons are actually misleading because they leave more questions. So they'll say something like, wrong team. How did you get the wrong team? How do you know you had the wrong team? Was it a leadership problem, or ran out of money? Why did you run out of money? Was it your product? Was it the way you pitched? Did you spend too much? Why did you run out of money? Bad decisions. All right, who's giving you the bad decisions, and why are they giving you bad decisions? So there's all of these individual reasons why founders are failing, and I really wanted to dig in deep into each one of these things and try to provide something to founders to help them succeed, because I feel, starting a company, if you look at startups, they are the ones that are changing the world. It's not corporates and it's not politics. It's startups. So this was my way of trying to help evolve the planet through entrepreneurship.
What out of all, maybe give us a tease out on what are some of the most top failure messages, or maybe one that's a favorite of yours that you like to harp on that startups do.
Yeah, I mean, a big one is they take bad advice.
Is that from their investors, or? You
know what? It is actually primarily from investors, which sounds weird because they're supposed to be helping them and they're vested in their success. But the average investor knows the failure rate. They've already counted on those numbers. So a lot of times what they're after is one big one to make up for all the small ones. So they push everybody that way, and that creates a lot of failures.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. The one thing that's always made me mental sometimes with Silicon Valley is, and I kind of realize, I understand kind of why they do it, but I see a lot of, and my friends in Silicon Valley see a lot of ageism. And, I've started lots of companies and corporations and done different things. And I would hope at 57, I've learned a couple things. But, when I see some of these 20-year-olds running these startups, and they're great. They can run on Red Bull and Top Ramen and work 24/7 like I used to do. But I've seen them wreck so many just brilliant startups with poor management, poor decision making. One of my friends has written about the unicorn issues of the alcohol cart and the and the 10 foosball thing and the fuckery that goes on sometimes at companies that you're just like, how do you survive sexual harassment and just drug problems?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of a tremendous amount of number of the startups, I actually wrote an article called "Don't Try to Be a Unicorn," because it's like 0.0001% of startups actually become, you have a better chance of being hit by lightning in your house. So I tell them, I'm like, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to be a unicorn, it's like somebody coming to me saying, I'm going to be the next Michael Jackson or Kiss or Beatles or something. It's like, it's just not realistic. And when they shoot for that, they cause themselves to get overvalued because they think they're going to sell certain price. So they keep on raising the valuation. Then investors walk away because they can't make the money on the arbitrage. and then they go out of business. That's one of the common things. And another common thing, to your point about Silicon Valley, is, the interesting thing about that, though, is that people that are 45 and older have almost a 50% chance of being successful over those that are under that age group.
50%?
Yeah, you have a 50% better chance of being successful. And the data that I did in the research, I was amazed by the percentage. But then you think about it and you're like, you learn a lot by the time you're 40.
Oh, yeah.
How much do you know in your 20s? You're going to make some pretty stupid mistakes at that age, like getting foosball tables and beanbag chairs and all that stuff with the money
alcohol cart.
With all the money that you should be spending on, sales and marketing or product development.
Yeah, that's the other big mistake I've seen. Not that you know more about this field than I do, but the other big mistake I've seen is they spend so much time trying to craft the most perfect app or perfect product. And you're like, you can do that, but if no one hears about this fucking thing and you don't do marketing, no one's going to care. I mean, I've seen lots of apps that were the best app on the market and they were beaten out by an Instagram or a Snapchat or, and usually their initial iterations were just complete shit. You're like, why is this shit app beating this great app? And it's on fire and, people are just loading into it. What the hell? And, when Instagram came out, there were two way better apps that were actually 1080p, that were portrait. And if you're a photographer like me, that's what it was kind of for. It was originally all those apps were photography. And Instagram came along and had the shitty, what do you call it, portrait mode and low res. It wasn't high res like the other competitors. Like, why is Instagram beating these other two? This makes no logical sense on paper. They're way better, but, the chicks dug it.
It's interesting, the thing about that is that it has to do with how simple things are. One of the things that I've learned,
intuitive,
like super, super, super simple. If it's too complicated, people won't use it. It has to be, if you have to think when you're using an app, then you don't use the app, right? If you think about this as an example, Facebook has everything Instagram has. It has everything that Twitter has. It has everything that YouTube has. It has all of them, right? But people don't. Still, you have Instagram. Still, you have Twitter. Still, you have YouTube. Still, you have all these TikTok, right? And that's because Facebook is trying to be everything to everybody, and these other apps are trying to be one thing to one person. And people, they produce and consume data in watch, listen, read, experience formats, right? Because those are your senses, right? So if you're a different person if you're watching than if you're a reader and so on and so forth, right? So it changes the dynamics depending on who you are. So that is, if you think about it, that is something that's like a pretty big deal if you really process what's going on there, right?
Wow, that makes sense.
And also what you see is in the world, you see like a still lake, and then there's a drop, and that drop is what we call a disruption. Outside of that are a bunch of rings. The first rings are like mobile was the drop. iPhone came out, boom, there's the drop. The first rings are the social media platforms, the app stores, stuff like that. But then you see as the rings expand to the outside, there's more opportunities. They're not as big, but there's more of them. So the more you go to the outside, the simpler the app has to be. The closer you are to the inside, the more complex the app can be, like a phone or, like Apple's products versus, the apps that you get in the App Store versus the App Store itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally does. It's like Lord of the Rings, eh? It's like The Hobbit. There was one ring to rule them all, and then expanded from there. But that makes sense. I mean, I see. I forget the gentleman I'm referring to. He wrote a book about something about unicorns. He used to write for what was that rag mag in Silicon Valley back in the day? I think Peter Thiel had it shut down.
Yeah, Peter Thiel. Yeah, Peter Thiel is,
he's the guy. Interesting guy. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to end up in the camps. I'm probably going to end up in the camps at this point. So it was really weird. That's probably a conversation for a whole show, seeing how Silicon Valley went complete left to right. Anyway, anything more we want to tease out about the book to get people to pick it up before we move to some of the services in your background?
Yeah, I mean the book it took 5 years of research and 4 years to write the book. It's got 5 stars on Amazon. You can pick it up in Audible, or you can pick it up in Amazon or any bookstore. It's real factual data. It's not like the kind of thing that you read and you walk away going, that was interesting, but there's nothing I can use today.
Yeah.
This actually has things that you can use today, like as you read it. So it's a little different that way.
Sounds like a manual. Every startup, wannabe startup dude should definitely read, hand out to their people if you're a seed investor and stuff. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. How were you raised? People like to get to know you. What were some of your influences? How did you get the entrepreneur bug, disease? As I like to call it. Once you get it, man, you're just fucked for life, really.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
You just never. I always want to be an entrepreneur. I don't play with others, evidently, after all these years. But how did you get into it? What were some of your influences in your journey?
I mean, I grew up poor. We homesteaded, actually, and lived in tents while we built our house. Wow. Then, because I'm neurodivergent, I had a hard time in school, so I tried to join the Navy. I couldn't do that. Wow. So I got out and I started companies, and then I built 12 of them. So I got good at doing that. What really motivates me is, I mean, at first it was just because I couldn't get a job. I needed to create my own job because I couldn't find one that would work with me, that I was good at. So then
that's my problem. I don't play with others, see, so I kind of have the same vein, although being neurodivergent is probably smarter than I'm just some idiot. You guys are all savants and shit, and I'm just an idiot.
We hide it. We hide neurodivergence really well. I'm what you call masking right now.
Oh, really?
Which is, you put on a character so that you can get through common conversations. Oh. Yeah. And so then, I really was also motivated for the last 5 years based on trying to make a difference to social and environmental impact. I did a short stint in politics as a chairman for a congressional candidate, trying to get money moved down to startups. That didn't work. So I started working on the book with the data I collected during that process, and then started startupscience.io to try to help founders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've really got it down, man. You really got it down. And so you went through all these different developments, and I mean, where do you're doing a lot. Like, what kind of coffee are you drinking? What kind of diet are you using? Like, inquiring minds want to know.
I mean, my schedule, my whole bio is 12 startups, 12 exits, 4 private equity awards. I have a Forbes podcast. I did a TED Talk. I'm a Fulbright scholar. I have an honorary PhD. I wrote a book, and it's a lot of stuff. You're right. And then not including my personal challenges. What I do is I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I meditate. I do yoga. And then I come to my office and I plan, I manifest my day. I tell myself what my day is going to be like. And I tell myself things like, don't be surprised if something amazing happens today. And today is going to be a wonderful day, and stuff like that, right? I do that in meditation. And then I sit down and I look at my entire day, and I visualize myself going through my whole day. And then after work, I meditate again. And then, I close out my day, I meditate again. And then there's a lot of small process I do to keep all my shit together.
Nice. Hey, fuck, I need to have whatever coffee you're drinking or
I do drink a lot of coffee, probably 10 cups a day.
10 cups. All right, I don't feel too bad then. I drink about
like these guys.
Yeah, I drink about 8 espressos a day, double.
Oh,
we're on the same drug. Somehow I'm not achieving as much as you. And what's crazy is I don't have a wife and kids. I can't afford wife and kids. I don't make $10 million a year, and I'm still saving up for my first divorce. And so I need about $10 million for that, I think, evidently, from the way I hear. But yeah, the amount of time you're juggling and doing stuff, I mean, good for you, man. I mean,
thanks, man.
You're kicking ass and taking names. Like, I'm 57. My body's, I'm like, yeah, we should do some shit that Gregory's doing. And my body's like, yeah, I think we're going to go take a nap. And
I find that the more I do, the more I can do. And the least I do, the little I can do. So, I know, and I'm 56. For me to go out and do the things that I've done is it's really takes a lot of discipline. I mean, I swam a marathon when I was, 55.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 6.5 hours of swimming in the ocean. And it took me a year to be able to do that. And the process to get there was really, really, really difficult. If you do these sort of things, you get in your mind that you can do things that you don't think you can do. And that changes everything because it's your mindset that changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the different challenges have different things for me. Some of them has to do with fear, like base jumping or wrestling a crocodile or swimming with the sharks, bullfighting, stuff like that. Some of them are pure excitement, like driving IndyCar or driving NASCAR. Mm-hmm. Some of them are more physical challenges, like swimming the marathon or running a marathon or climbing El Capitan, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
It depends on what it is, but each one of them face me with something that I either don't think I can do or think it's almost impossible. And then when I achieve those things, then I feel like, okay, I can still do this. And I'm getting older, and it's getting a lot to be honest, it's getting way harder to do these things, especially if I'm doing something and there's a bunch of young people doing it and I'm like the oldest dude out there. But, it's sometimes I got to tell you, when I was running a marathon, I have asthma, so it was really hard for me.
Really?
And I have really bad. So it took me 7.5 hours, right? And I was moving so slow. I mean, there was this dude that ran past. He was dressed like a princess. He ran right past me. I had some 70-year-old guy run past me. By the time I got to the finish line, the whole thing was closed because it took me so long.
They left?
Yeah, they left.
They left?
The beer garden was closed. Everything was gone. And, but I finished, right?
Good.
And
Good
even though it took me forever, I still finished it. And that alone, that was incredibly motivating for me just to say, holy crap, I can still do this shit, So
I'm inspired, dude. I'm gonna follow you on everything you're doing just so I can kick myself and be like, I need to, you've got some pictures up here with Obama, you wrestling gators. I mean, your wife must encourage you on
Obama
this
twice, man.
Yeah. Congratulations.
He is thank you. He is such a cool guy, man. I don't care what your political standing is.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you would like this guy. He is a cool cat, really cool cat.
He reads a lot of books, and he's such a great leader and communicator.
Smart as a whip.
And
so humble. So humble and kind. I mean, the way he was with all the people he was meeting was humble and just beautiful, with children, with older people, with younger people, with all these people. He was just such an amazing person just to watch him,
Yeah. Well, he used to have presence like that back in the day.
Yeah. Cool people. Yeah.
Cool
we used
people,
to have cool
people that read books and shit. Up until 2 months ago. It's January 2025, people. If you're under the never mind, the Maduro diet right now, you'll understand what's going on. Anyway, so let's get into some of the offerings you have, how you help people, you help entrepreneurs, you do investments, speaking. Talk to us about some of the offerings you have on your website where people can reach out to you, work with you, and hire you for stuff, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an author. I speak at a lot of events. So probably my biggest thing is speaking events. I do some advisory, but I charge a lot of money for that. So most people don't go with that unless they're doing really well. But I do advisory work. I do speaking events. I write books. I write articles. StartupScience.io is my 13th business. And that has a free access for founders to go in. There's 215,000 investors. There's grants. There's courses you can take. I mean, it's got everything you need as a founder, and it's free for founders. It's like my gift to try to help out with our little rock that people forget we're all sharing together here.
Yeah. It's pretty little, especially with some of the stuff that's going on in our environment with climate change. I mean, it's really hard to deny. I mean, the crazy shit you saw in California with the fires and
yeah, it's terrifying, and it's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. A lot of the startups that I work with are startups that are helping the environment, either social or environmental impact.
I love this.
And
Startupscience.io. Yeah, I love that you're giving back in that way and making it, there's a lot of mistakes you can make when you start a company, and I think there's a lot of potential upside I've seen so many companies that I've been in love with. I've been in love with their app. I've been in love with their setup. I've thought this is going to be a unicorn, and they just muck it up. There's stupid decisions, getting high on your own supply when it comes to how much money you have. You're like, do you really need to buy the Ferrari when you're still in your seed or A round? Well, maybe you should save your money and put that money towards buying some ads. Tell people
the way that founders spend money, especially in the Valley, they should be ashamed, because you're taking investors who have worked with their money, and you're just pissing their money away.
WeWork was a good example of some of those abuses that are out there. Do we cover most of the offerings on your website? You do consulting, coaching?
Yeah, I think we did. Okay. My focus is startup science. That's where I put most of my energy now. And everything actually I do on my website is to promote startup science, including the book, which is, the Startup Lifecycle. So it's like my main jam, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Give us your final pitch out to people who order up the book, reach out to you for services and all that good stuff in .coms.
Yeah, so my name is Gregory Shepard. The book is The Startup Lifecycle. My personal website is gregoryshepard.com. That's SHEPARD. And then startupscience.io is the software platform for founders. And I really appreciate your time and energy. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on the show. It's been fun. And I got to follow you hard and see all the stuff you do. I was going to make the joke earlier when we were talking about the crazy stuff you do every year to stretch yourself. Your wife must encourage you a lot. She must have one hell of a life insurance policy on you.
She did prevent me from doing Running with the Bulls. It's something cool. I do have a ticket to space.
Do you?
Yeah, if you look right there, that is a ticket to space. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm hoping to be able to do that sometime in the next couple of years. They're still working out the kinks.
I have one too, but it's for 100 milligrams edibles. I've been seeing ads for that lately. I'm like, who can take 100 milligrams?
100 milligrams would be insane. I'm a weed smoker, and there's no way on this planet I could do 100 milligrams. With this stuff they have these days, it's like one little puff after work, and it's like a beer, or a glass of wine. Some of these cats will put down a whole joint of this stuff that they grow these days. This is way too powerful. I'm looking for a little glass of wine or a little beer without having alcohol. I'm not interested in, going to space.
Yeah, but you do have it on your wall. So do you think you're ever going to do the space thing? You're ever going to activate that?
I think so. They're working on it's a pod that floats up out of the atmosphere. And then you look down on the curvature of the Earth and the planet, and then it falls back down with a bunch of parachutes.
I've had that edible.
So they're still working out the kinks, but I'm passenger 617. So
that'll be exciting. I think I've done that also with Tito's vodka. So back in the day when I used to drive. Anyway, it's been wonderful to have you on. Thank you for coming on and sharing your ideas. Love to have you back anytime, Gregory. I think your book is something like every startup founder should pre-read, and every VC firm should probably hand out. But I don't know. I think they like the fees and write-offs sometimes at Anderson Horowitz. I don't know. I'm just teasing Anderson Horowitz. Anyway, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for my audience for tuning in. Order the book wherever fine books are sold. The Startup Lifecycle, the definitive guide to building a startup from idea to exit. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. That chef is out.